That's right, Woodchuck Chuckers, it's Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is a 1993 comedy film starring Bill Murray, and it's about time loops. It's one of the most popular and most recognized time loop movies out there, and we're going to use it as a base in the next few weeks as I go through as many time loop movies as I could come across. Let's face it, when you're looking at a movie and you find out that it's a time loop movie, the first thing that you think of is, oh, it's another movie like Groundhog Day, because that's just where your mind goes. Groundhog Day isn't even the first time loop movie, technically speaking. It's just where the popularity came from. So let's start talking about Groundhog Day. So this is a comedy. Acting-wise, isn't all that impressive, nor is it really trying to be. As far as range goes, technically speaking, it stays from one point and pretty much more or less stays at that point throughout the movie. It's not a big acting range movie. It's just not. So this gets 2 out of 4 possible stars. Character-wise, it's kind of the same thing. You're not really remembering the movie for the character specifically. You're remembering it more for the actors as well as the concept of the movie itself. You're not thinking about Phil and Rita. You're thinking about Andie MacDowell and Bill Murray. So for that reason alone, 2 out of 4 possible stars as well. As far as casting goes, I'm sure nostalgia has a big part of it, but it's hard to think of anybody else in these roles. They basically feel like they were born to play these roles. So I would actually give this full points, 4 out of 4 possible stars. Importance-wise, well, here's the thing. There is no real story goal, right? The characters aren't trying to get from point A to point B. Phil basically just has to live his life based around the fact that he's living the same day over and over again. That's the movie. There is no real goal. He's not trying to get anywhere. He gets somewhere. There is growth, but he, as a character, has no motivations to do anything. So as far as importance goes, I don't know. I think, for the most part, the characters influence him into being a better man. So there is importance there. But as a big, grand scheme, big picture thing, it's not really there. So I'll say in between. I'll say 3 out of 4 possible stars. Chemistry-wise, I think the movie did a great job. I think this is a big chemistry movie. So Bill Murray does a great job interacting with everybody, and everybody does a great job interacting with each other. So I'll give it 4 out of 4 possible stars for the chemistry. The great thing about being a 90s comedy film in general is it's nostalgic, it's fun, it's got a lot of lines that are memorable. So as far as the dialogue portion goes, I would say that this gets full points, 2 out of 2 possible stars. Balance, it's kind of an imbalanced film. Like I said before, there is no real story goal. No character is really trying to get from point A to point B. They're just living their life as is. So as far as balance goes, it's not really going anywhere. It's understandable, but it's not really going anywhere. So this balance gets 1 out of 2 possible stars. As far as story depth goes, absolutely. This is a movie about intrinsic value. It's about finding yourself and finding ways to be a better version of yourself, even though Phil doesn't really think there's anything wrong with him in the beginning at all. But apparently there is, and that's what the movie's all about. So, full points here, 2 out of 2 possible stars. It depends on how you see it, but originality can be original, it can be unoriginal. If this is the first time you're watching it in 2019, it's probably not going to feel that original since we've had so many time loop movies up to this point. But if you're thinking clearly, and it came out in 1993, it was pretty original at that point. It popularized the idea of time loops in movies, so I will give originality 2 out of 2 possible stars. So when it comes down to interesting, does it interest you enough to watch the movie, and while you're watching it, does your interest stay piqued throughout? For this one, absolutely. It's a classic comedy, and it's super popular, and everybody loves it. 2 out of 2 possible stars. So this is interesting. When it comes down to the visuals, I wouldn't normally say it's got great visuals, because it doesn't, you know? No visual effects, no practical effects, no real costume designs or anything like that. However, the town itself acts as a character, so that goes into production design. I'm going to give it 2 out of 2 possible stars for visuals. As far as cinematography goes, I don't think this deserves much points. I think it's mostly average. I don't think any camera angles here are all that recognizable or great. So this gets half points, 1 out of 2 possible stars. The editing was actually really well done, because if you think about it from a pre-production, post-production, production, whatever side of things, these filmmakers had to shoot the same scenes over and over and over and over and over again for the different days, and the editor's job was to sort through the madness to create a story that made sense. So the sequences had to be in order, and the editor did a good job. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Advertisement and music, perfect. I mean, advertisement was as advertised as you might imagine. There was nothing false about it there. Music and sound, while I was watching, I was humming, I was singing along. 2 out of 2 possible stars for both of those. So the narrative arc is actually pretty interesting. For the most part, it does get a perfect score. The only place where it doesn't is the obstacles, because, like I said, the characters aren't trying to do anything. They're not trying for any goals. They're not trying to get from point A to point B, so there are no obstacles in their way. The only obstacle is the natural obstacle of trying to figure out what the heck is going on in this time loop. And that's basically it. So that gets half points. Everything else is perfect, though. There is a great introduction that gets you acquainted with who these people are, the mood of the film, and the inciting incident is obviously when the loop starts happening. The climax is, I'm not going to start talking about spoiling it, but most of you know what the climax is and what the following action is. Returning to a new norm and calming down and all that fun stuff. So, perfect scores there other than the obstacles, so that's pretty good. So as far as entertainment goes, rewatchability, obviously I've seen it a ton of times, so that gets perfect points. Fun experience, do you have a good time while watching? Of course you do. It's a classic, it's funny, it's whatever. So that gets full points. Impulse to buy it, I own it. I have bought it a couple of times because I lost my original copy. So yes, absolutely. Impulse to talk about it, hey, have you seen Groundhog Day? No? What is wrong with you? Get off your butt and go watch Groundhog Day. So absolutely, it gets full points. And is it a movie that you can't take your eyes off of? Not really. It's not something where you can't blink or you can't easily pause the movie to go take a bathroom break. It's not something that you have to see the next shot for. So that one doesn't get any points. But everything else gets full points, so that's good. As a Bill Murray movie, this is one of the most recognizable, most talked about Bill Murray movies that exists out there. So that gets full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. As a comedy, it's got a really good sense of passive-aggressive humor, sarcastic humor. You know, all the things that Bill Murray's actually known for is done very well here. So this gets full points. The concept of time loop movies, since that's what we're looking at, time loops. Obviously, it's the most talked about time loop movie out there, so I gotta give it full points there. Was it halfway decent? Or otherwise known as, does it still stand up? And I think it does. I think it does a great job. I think it is a classic. So that gets full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. If we add up all of those points, what do we get? Zippity zoppity doo! 90 out of 100 possible stars, which is not that bad. So, yeah, check it out. I don't know what I'm going to review next. We'll find out. Stay tuned.